Hello, you're watching Global Insight with me, Young. Here from Arirang News Centre in Seoul, we connect with experts from around the world to hear their views on issues making headlines. As the COVID-19 pandemic devastates the global economy, there's an opportunity for governments to support a green-led recovery. And this will involve rethinking and transforming the systems that underpin the economy, most notably the energy sector, as we move away from the current fossil fuel-based energy systems. And powering the new normal of renewable energy, green cars and sustainable as well as highly digitalized infrastructure are energy storage systems such as batteries. Today we discuss the green recovery and how batteries can make or break post-pandemic economies. For this, I'm joined by WACCA's Adam Wala, Asia analyst for the Economist Intelligence Unit, joining us from Singapore. Great to see you this morning.
Thank you. Morning.
We also connect with Andrew Lim, Trade Commissioner at the Quebec Government Office here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's always lovely to have you both on. And well, let's start with you first, WACCA. The South Korean economy, it was actually losing steam before the COVID-19 virus hit, with the export volume of its main cash cows, such as memory chips and automobiles, on a rather downward trend. So what were some structural problems that hindered growth? And do you think the country's Green New Deal will put the country back on the road to green recovery?
Well, so one of the few structural issues that we're talking about here is South Korea's reliance on its export growth model. The main reason why we were seeing hiccups before the virus is also because of trade tensions, which were basically between the US and China, and they're both Korea's biggest trading partners. I don't think the model per se is a bad one, because that's what led big economies like Japan and Germany prosper in post-Second World War. That's a model that even Vietnam's pursuing now. So as countries grow and expand, they get onto that, higher value chain. South Korea did benefit from, this export-oriented model for decades as well. But it was, the trade wars, the trade tensions across the world that impacted South Korea predominantly. With COVID, that's, again, even a bigger issue. When we talk about the Green New Deal, yes, there's definitely, a silver lining there. The Korea's, yes, definitely being impacted by the pandemic, like every other country on the planet. But the fact that they're relying on being more green for the future is definitely a good thing because, yes, China's decided to be more green as well when, Xi Jinping was talking about it at the UN summit. But Moon Jae-in had put these plans early on, as early as April, and that's one key sign because, yes, all countries need to rethink their growth statistics and how their model can be redefined, how can they be on a more sustainable path, and instead of just relying on, having more industries which are purely reliant on fossil fuels, switching more towards a sustainable path at least makes sure that the growth in the future is also sustainable.
So we really keep hearing about sustainable and resilient economies going forward. And Andrew, what constitutes a green recovery for the economy, and why are next generation batteries crucial to this?
So in my point of view, I think the green recovery is basically focusing more on resources, whether it be government-led budgets or promotion or initiatives on innovative industries that ultimately helps with the paradigm shift away from fossil fuel to other substitutes such as hydrogen. So I guess you guys already mentioned that one of the great examples is Korea's Green New Deal. It's a government-led initiative to promote a more sustainable green economy. And it is worth around 61.9 billion USD, which is quite significant. And hopefully the government has an ambitious goal to create around 660,000 jobs by 2025. And of course, today's topic is battery. And one of the key, aspects of this drive is the investment in battery technology. And what's quite interesting is if you kind of look back to history, this human had this, will or the urge to always look for this medium of storing energy. And if you could kind of think about it, humans created dams to flywheels to compress air. And although things are advancing, battery technology is definitely not up to par with the demand, which you guys probably know. There's limited vehicle ranges, and of course you can't use batteries on plane due to weight to power ratios. So other limits, include things like renewable energy sources such as solar and wind that cannot really fully be stored in battery because I'm sure solar power, sometimes there's the sun, sometimes there's not. And there is some capacity to be able to store this energy through battery. It's just not there in terms of the actual need because there's a lot of limitations. And that's exactly why we really need to invest a lot of our, R&D technology innovation in next generation batteries to try to really go away from fossil fuels.
And Marcus, do you think South Korea can really make this green transition straight away, or do you think there are going to have to be certain adjustments?
Unfortunately, there'll have to be certain adjustments because this plan is also not just for the immediate, near future. It's also a plan that Moon Jae-in has, tried to introduce for until 2025. So this goes on beyond his single-term presidency as well, which makes sense. I mean, if you have to completely revamp the infrastructure to be more greener, to actually go from fossil fuel to more sustainable paths, yes, that takes time. And again, his plan is not just to target one sector. He's trying to get, for instance, data dams, which will benefit the healthcare sector through, or through financial sector, to fintech as well. So having those infrastructures in place will take time to introduce. South Korea is definitely one of the more technologically advanced nations across the world, across OECD. So they do have a starting benefit, like the starting point is definitely high above a lot of countries. So yes, that's one silver lining for South Korea, for sure. But to deliver the goals that Moon Jae-in has set in mind as well, and to try to introduce for the rest of the country, yes, they will certainly take some time.
Right, well, right now, Andrew, Korean companies, they're among the world's top electric vehicle or EV battery suppliers. And even in the country's Green New Deal, the focus is on EV batteries. But of course, they face huge competition from countries like Japan and China, as well as the US. So do you think Korea should really try and find a new niche in the battery industry like the European Union is trying to do? I mean, what kind of opportunities do you see?
So it is indeed true. I mean, there's intense competition from China, Japan, even other countries that are kind of trying to, I guess, get in on the bandwagon for this battery tech, because everything is electrified, everything's digitized, with batteries becoming ever more crucial in the modern economy. I mean, there's a lot of potential. And just recent figures from Gartner and other, I guess, market analysis indicates that battery market will expand by 15% to over 150 billion US dollars by 2025. So yes, there's a lot of competition, and with other value-added services such as maintenance and reliance on digital technology, as well as the advent of remote work due to COVID-19, I feel there's kind of a sort of say plenty of go around kind of for everyone. However, finding certain niches while also diversifying is always key to a healthy industry, and Korea's been very good at that in terms of especially ICT and 5G. So one of Korea's niche regarding batteries include kind of more efficient membranes, or using more efficient membranes to using special polymers such as graphene to extend battery life. So Korea does have somewhat of a niche market, but I mean, I always feel there's, I guess, plenty to go around, and especially the key opportunity that Korea may kind of need to focus on these days is, yes, there's a tech and R&D innovation, but also the political atmosphere of the current global economy. As he already kind of mentioned, with the U.S.-led and kind of U.S.-led initiative in countering China's dominance in certain sectors, which kind of include ICT and battery, and with U.S. and I guess many other countries kind of decouple from China's kind of dominance in the certain this electric vehicles and battery tech. I think this is also the opportunity that Korea could kind of somewhat seize. Korea could kind of work with other trusted partners and kind of seize this kind of political atmosphere to really get in, in the, I guess, the battery field a bit more than now. Yes.
So in terms of identifying the opportunities here, Wakas, do you think that green industries, particularly the battery sector, could help South Korea sort of overcome its its dependence on its traditional export items?
So when you talk about traditional export items, they're definitely semiconductors and other, electronic items as well. Semiconductors so far account for roughly, 20% of South Korea's total exports. So to make a dent to that will definitely take a lot more time for South Korea to be able to definitely establish its niche a lot strongly. Having said that, South Korea badly needs to diversify as well, because until last year, semiconductor exports were falling. This year, there were some, increases in semiconductor exports around, the second half, beginning of the second half, but primarily because China was, trying to stockpile them. So yes, the need to diversify, with the existing base of South Korean exports is quite essential. So it's not just whether batteries will be able to do this. South Korea has to make this work in that sense, that they don't rely on just one category and item of exports to be able to, drive their manufacturing sector and the export demand.
So really diversification is really important. And Andrew, as we see global companies like Tesla and Nikola, there have been some comparisons made between fuel cells and batteries. So why are more and more countries, including South Korea, betting on hydrogen-powered technologies and even hydrogen economies?
So to give a kind of a broad perspective, as people probably already know, reducing carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas and pollutants just may not be enough to reach the ambitious goals set by the Paris Climate Accords. So to kind of simply put, even if we reduce all the greenhouse gases today from methane, carbon dioxide to nitrous oxides, it'll stay up in the air for many years to come. So the key need is not just reducing carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases. We need to also capture and store, but also what we truly need to do is find a true substitute, which is kind of to wean off fossil fuels. And one of the key aspects is, yes, there's the batteries, but as I mentioned, with all the, I guess, the limitations, we need some other like a substitute. So one of the substitute that Korea is kind of spearheading is hydrogen economy or hydrogen gas for energy production in terms of especially for vehicles. So yes, batteries do have that. It's extremely promising, and the technology is evolving. But kind of, if you look at it in a scientific perspective, the limitations may not be easy to be able to overcome, especially in terms of price competition. So I guess, although I do have great hopes for advancement of battery technology, I mean, the key here is, as you mentioned, diversity. And humans rely mostly on one key technology, battery, to kind of get off of from fossil fuels and resolve all this climate issue. I think that is the key issue here. So yes, there's hydrogen technology, but there's other types of renewable energies and other types of, I guess, energy storage that I think humanity really needs to diversify and kind of put in a lot of the effort. Because yes, definitely battery is great, but if we just rely on battery alone, that'll be quite risky to a sense. And I also think that Korea's kind of initiative in this hydrogen economy, it's quite it's intuitive, I feel, because a lot of the infrastructure that you have for fossil fuels, you can kind of to a certain degree retrofit, but use for hydrogen, I guess, production or hydrogen transfer, etc., like pipelines. There's already oil pipelines used around the world. People kind of retrofit that, use hydrogen, so you kind of take advantage of what's available already, which works a lot into the favor in terms of the scale of economy.
Right, and Andrew, right now, South Korea's R&D and next-generation energy storage systems are being conducted by the likes of LG Chemical, SK Innovation and Samsung. But some say that North America and European countries, they have the strength of startups, public research and innovation ecosystems. So to turn the sector into a new source of economic growth for South Korea, how do you think the country can spur innovation and also attract more global businesses?
Well, one really kind of it's kind of a bad thing, but also a good thing is we've been seeing a lot of symptoms that Mother Earth has been kind of showing just recently with the record typhoons in Korea and in California, record fires, etc. And because of this kind of I guess a lot of the symptoms, the media is giving a lot of coverage. I think people are starting to kind of realize climate change is real, and the movement has been going on for some time. But because of these catastrophic events with the big economic, I guess, destruction, people are kind of really having this momentum. So I think with this momentum for a greener solution, Korea is kind of in the perfect stage kind of to take the lead, because I'm a true believer of the theory of functionalism, where Korea has other aspects that put them on the center stage in the international arena, from K-pop, K-quarantine, 5G. So I think Korea should seize this opportunity, even although other countries might have a better ecosystem in terms of startups and innovation. Korea could kind of partner with these kind of like-minded partners that want to kind of resolve climate change. So you kind of mentioned, or I should mention, there's a entity called Hydro-Quebec. In Quebec, most of the energy comes from renewable energy, in terms of power generation at least. So for example, Korea could perhaps partner with Hydro-Quebec and produce hydrogen with this kind of renewable energy, so-called green hydrogen, and then ship it back to Korea, because Korea has the capacity, the technological know-how, such as LPG, LNG tankers, and kind of create this partnership of like-minded hydrogen economy and kind of go from there. And what's interesting is Quebec has actually led the way, and they have something called the Hydrogen Quebec Coalition, which actually includes conglomerates such as Hyundai and Toyota. And they're kind of trying to foster this collaboration in terms of, supply chain, but also innovation and trying to power the hydrogen economy forward.
And Wakas, going forward, how important is green recovery not only to South Korea's economic growth, but also regional neighbours like China and Japan's? I mean, how quickly do you see recovery happening compared to the rest of the world?
The recovery, well, in China, well, they are definitely not even contracting this year. So for them, it's going to be how can they recover to the normal trajectory of growth. For Japan, too, unfortunately, the normal paths of growth have been so slow that it will take them at least up till 2025 to get back to their 2019 growth levels. But with the new prime minister in Japan, just elected recently, Suga Yoshihide, he has plans to actually at least make sure that Japan digitizes as well. There's also a key opportunity for Japan to at least seize on the chances of at least becoming more green, because they heavily rely on fossil fuel to power their country as well. The share of renewables is actually fairly low. If you look at how the distribution was even before the Fukushima disaster, it was just around 10%, and that has not grown significantly in the past 10 years. So yes, the reliance on fossil fuels is quite high. The key problem that a lot of people forget about, major economies such as, South Korea, Japan, China, and even others, such as Australia, is that, yes, while they may try to set targets for their own countries, they often are exporters of, non-renewable sources. So, for instance, Australia exports a lot of LNG, a lot of coal. A lot of countries like Japan, for instance, would be sponsoring, coal power plants. A lot of countries. China often is doing that as part of its BRI projects. So these are issues that they have to look into as well, because yes, you can clean up your own home, but if you're still exporting dirty energy to the rest of the world, that still adds to carbon emissions across the world. And cleaning your home must not be solving the world problem, because that's how climate change works, unfortunately. So that's a lot of ways, that a lot of countries can work together to make sure that, yes, they do ensure that they're not sponsoring more coal deals across the world. Even if their own country relies, more on a green, climate-friendly energy mix, they should at least be making sure that their standards and ethics and practices are also at least introduced to the countries which they trade with more often.
Well, as you said, hopefully we'll see more collaboration between South Korea, Japan and China. I mean, we do have our diplomatic problems, but we do have lots of opportunities and challenges going ahead. Well, this is where we'll have to wrap up the discussion today. That was Wakas Adamwala, Asia analyst for the Economic Intelligence Unit, joining us all the way from Singapore, and Andrew Lim, Trade Commissioner at the Quebec Government Office in Seoul. Thank you both so much for your incredible insights.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow here in South Korea. Hope you join us then. But for now, have a lovely day or evening wherever you are. Goodbye.